and this is for my class. It's professional communication in the digital age. So I'm doing a topic on communication. So yeah, here we go. So communicating, it's weird. We talk about it every day. Communicating with each other. So that's what my presentation is about today. So enjoy. I'm going to start off with a few questions. So, who has been on a first date before? Okay, yeah, well, I'm glad that a lot of you raised your hands. Okay, second question, who's been on a blind date? Anyone? Just one? I'm so surprised. Okay, did it go well?
I married him.
Okay.
6 months after meeting him, so yes.
This is helping my presentation, so thank you. So it's kind of an intimidating situation, and if you haven't been on one, I'm sure you can imagine meeting someone completely not knowing them, and you're supposed to talk for an hour, 2 hours, and you don't even know them. So recently, I've been watching this show on Netflix, and I don't know if any of you have watched it. It's called Dating Around. It's about New Yorkers that are stuck in the dating game. I've heard it's kind of hard in New York. So the viewer gets to watch as people of all ages, colors, and sexualities go on their 5 first dates, only to pick one for the second date. So one person goes on 5 first dates with 5 different people. You may be probably thinking this is just like The Bachelor, and it would be the exact same. I feel you, I understand, but hear me out. It's actually a really good show. So here's the example, but it actually gave me a really good look into what it is to communicate with others and to leave a lasting impression. So when you go on a first date or a blind date, you are trying to show your best self right off the bat, while also still not being fake, but kind of like trying to put on a certain act to show who you really are. It actually gave me an intriguing look into the world of first impressions and how we present ourselves to others. And the show is actually how dating is in real life. So let's give an example. From one episode, it was a heterosexual couple going on a date, and there was one woman, we can call her Jenny, because I'm not gonna get hate mail or have anyone sue me. So Jenny, she was a little bit cringy, I will say. She was very visible that she was playing a persona, that she was acting a certain way in order to have this sort of like mindset about herself or to reveal herself to the other person. Kind of like a coy fox situation, like, oh, me, okay, that type of person. Long story short, 4 out of 5 partners picked up on this intense energy and backed off. So this whole dilemma got me thinking. A blind date is just a couple of hours of revealing your best self while desperately trying to leave a lasting impression. If we are doing this act willingly, we're scheduling these dates for Friday nights, we're doing it to ourselves, then we should bring that same action to the workplace. Communication is used in almost every area of our lives, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. The messages we send to others are constantly illustrating what kind of people we are. So how I'm talking to you today is illustrating how I am. Today I'll be diving into the importance of effective communication and impression management at work. If we treat our professional communication and impression management like we treat our blind dates, then that can help improve our presentation of self. Because trust me, watch the episode, you do not want to be like Jenny. You do not want to. Hard to watch. So today I'm going to be going over that first impressions are formed quickly, that first impressions are based on limited information, what people first learn about you influences our biases, how they perceive information about you in the future, and how first impressions are easily generalized. Lastly, how some characteristics are more influential to people than others. So let's go for it. So the first one is first impressions are formed quickly. So from the textbook for this course, it quotes, in only a few seconds we decide if someone is likable, competent, and a good person or not. We form first impressions quickly in an effort to feel comfortable with those we meet and to reduce uncertainty about new people and situations. So the word I want to stress here is uncertainty. So the first day of class we met and we didn't know any of each other. We may not have any full-on conversations, but you leave a first impression with those you meet. Sweating, something I do when I'm nervous. You do it when you first meet with someone. So when you're making a first impression at work, you might be nervous. Take that into consideration. Smiling, I'm doing it right now. When I'm nervous, I overly smile. You might come off super weird, just try to keep pushing through it because it's okay. Introduce yourself naturally. We've all been there where you're like, did I just act so weird in that situation and I wasn't natural? So try to take that into consideration when leaving a first impression. And then lastly, just take a breath, and that will probably make your first sentence come out a little clearer. Next is first impressions are based on limited information. So we form impressions based on information available to us. This information comes from not only what we see, but also what we have heard from others. We tend to listen and focus on characteristics available to us. The example I'm going to use here is a girl from my work. We're going to call her Barbara. Barbara is something. So when I first started working there, people came up to me and they were like, watch out for Barbara. Barbara's rude, she is condescending, and she's going to be really difficult to work with. Okay, so what am I going to think about Barbara? That Barbara is not going to be that cool. So the first point in that, though, is don't assume, because I didn't make that impression. That was someone else's impression that they told me about. What might people assume about you? When I first started working there, they might assume something about me that I'm not sure of, and hopefully I prove them wrong. Give people the benefit of the doubt. So I made my own assumptions about Barbara. I met Barbara. I worked with Barbara. Barbara's not that fun. But it's okay. I gave her the benefit of the doubt and made that assumption for myself. And lastly, follow your instincts. Give people a chance, but at the end of the day, you know what energies vibe with you and what people are okay or not. Next is what people learn about you, it matters. So what people first learn about you influences or biases how they perceive subsequent information about you. The example I'm going to use here is that when you first speak, people remember that. So when I first meet you, for example, if I said something kind of offensive or vulgar, you might remember that in further conversations and kind of have a bias towards our conversation. I tend to have a kind of silly personality, a weird humor, I'll say, so I know that when I'm in a professional situation, I have to keep that under wraps while still being myself. And that takes me to be yourself, but use a mindful filter. So you should express who you are naturally, but also you need to be aware of what situations you're in. Next, if you were initially approachable and friendly, people will continue to think that way. This is the thing that I want, if any of you are out there listening, to take home today, because this is what I use in my job every single day. If you didn't know, I'm a bartender at a local restaurant. It's super fun. But that's my mantra here is I try to be approachable and I try to be friendly. So that means that people will keep coming back. And I do. I have people that come and truly come to just talk and chat with me. I know a lot about people's lives. And so that's what makes people come back. And same thing with my coworkers. They believe they can trust me, and they believe that I can give them good advice and a good listening ear, and then they can trust that I will keep that in confidence, as I'm talking about it right now, obviously. But and then we've all done it. We've all been biased about someone. They've said one thing that's just ticked us off, and then ever since then we're like, Try to push past that and really listen to what people are trying to say. Next, first impressions are easily generalized. So if others think you are smart, for instance, they are likely to generalize that impression and attribute other favorable qualities to you, such as skill and industriousness. If they think you aren't smart, they will likely perceive you as being incapable, unskilled, and perhaps unreliable. The example I'm going to use here is my significant other worked at a new restaurant in Old Town, and she started off just, as the same thing as everybody else, just server, bartender, or whatever, and she was like, I'm going to take this job really seriously. I'm going to put my all into it. And she did. She put her all into it, and she overheard from other coworkers that they were thinking about moving her up to management. She's never managed. She's never been a manager, and she didn't come into this job wanting to be a manager. But because they attributed her skills that she was showing, they gave her the option to be a manager. This just shows that the way you put yourself out there, it can lead you to other possibilities. But generalizations are not always good, but they happen. So how can we manage these generalizations? Me, I'm super forgetful. Everyone at my work knows it. I actually just lost my phone. So we're used to it. That phone is a new one. So how can we manage these generalizations? If people and my bosses know I'm super forgetful, how can I be more organized, and how can I show them that even though I am this thing and I can't change it, I'm making up for it in these aspects. So make sure to use verbal and nonverbal signals with anything like that. If they think that you're not very friendly, then maybe try to ask for people for help more, or give them a pat in the back with a nonverbal signal. Anything you can do to prove what you're trying to convey. And then lastly, some characteristics are more influential than others. So some characteristics can drastically affect how people perceive you. And this one is honestly more of a blank slate because it matters what characteristics are important to you. For example, I'm not a carpenter. If I was a carpenter and I was applying to be a carpenter, they might ask, am I strong? Am I diligent? Can I work in different conditions? Can I work long hours? Can I work with numbers? No, I can't do any of that. So what characteristics are important to you? If they're interviewing me for a bartending position, can you talk all day? Can you listen to people talk all day? Can you be responsible? Then I might get the job. So what changes your perceptions of others? And take a look in the mirror, metaphorically and literally. Are you presenting your best self for this particular position? So what I want you guys to leave with is the next task is, let's move beyond the research to create practical approach to this pressure of first impressions. Achieving the goal of managing how people perceive you is possible. So we're not on a blind date every day. You're not trying to make a first impression necessarily every day, but at work you are trying to impress your superiors and your coworkers. So lastly, you're only in control of yourself, so react, don't act. Be honest, stay true to your character, and please, please do not be like Jenny. Don't do it. So a disclaimer, while I think it's important to present yourself effectively at work and life, it isn't all that matters. Being yourself is the most important. Sometimes you can follow all these guidelines I just went through and present your honest best self and be a master at impression management. But some people really just will not like you no matter what. So handling that fact with grace and confidence is the most positive way to approach this. Presentation of self is not just for our coworkers and blind dates and other things like that. It's about how we view ourselves. So that's it. Thank you guys.